28th of January, and Happy New Year to you all. It's time to actually start thinking about what we're going to be growing. Even though the weather is still appalling outside, we've had loads of rain, everywhere's flooded. So, but you just have to let the seasons evolve until that becomes ready. But for now, if you haven't got a polytunnel, if you've got a kitchen windowsill, it doesn't matter. If you've got some sort of undercover where you can kind of shield plants to a degree, you can begin certain things. Don't get too carried away. It's perfectly fine to wait. You know, you can sow many things for the next few months. You know, don't worry about it. Things will catch up. You know, for the glut time of sort of June, July, when there's a big glut of everything. You know, because the hungry gap, you know, is April, May. That's when things are getting ready to go out and the frosts have passed, or getting due to pass. So you're waiting for that date. But for now, you're going to get the cold, the wet, and then it'll switch then, and spring will become, hopefully. So we'll get on with starting some stuff. I need to sift some compost. I've done some garlic, but I didn't have enough compost, so I need to prep some more. So I'll show you a basic mix I'm going to use this year, because I don't know if some of you have looked online already, you know, price of the compost and stuff like that. It's getting a bit silly now, to be honest. For some of the like 50-litre bags, it's ridiculous, to be honest. So it's not feasible for some people, I guess, you know, to go and buy a load. So if there's a few of you can get together and buy it in a big bulk bag or something, and that works out cheaper, then go down that road. I mean, obviously you don't need much for sorting seeds out, so if you spend a tenner, get some compost, sieve it, and that's plenty enough for your seeds, and then you can put them out in the ground. So because I have no compost, I've got some spent compost, but that's in tubs. I thought I'll brave it and I'll just use my own. I thought I'll try that for now. Obviously I'm going to be comparing some more compost later in the season, but there's no point me picking that up yet because I don't need it yet. So I'm just going to use some of my own. So I'm using is my own compost and some vermiculite. You can use like silver sand or grit and things like that if you want. If you've got some like loamy topsoil somewhere that's, you know, it doesn't matter if it's got a few weed seeds in, you can pick them out as they grow. That just helps the mix. But I haven't got any loam based stuff at the moment. I've got some cloddy soil in an old compost bin, but it'll be a bit wet. So I'm just going to use my own, which is quite, I mean, yeah, there's bits of plastic in it and all sorts of wrappers, twigs and cable ties. It's quite wet, you know, because it's a kitchen waste compost really. It has weeds and whatever I harvest from the garden that I don't use gets thrown in there. So it kind of, you know, it's surprising. Once you get used to saving your own, you can build it up pretty quick. I just have like a bowl like this in the kitchen. I just put a tray over it, and everyone in the house has got used to it. You know, now any scraps at all, put them in. It's, you know, whether you want to put like bones and things like that, and that's your choice. And a lot of people against it, but I know some do bury carcasses of things like, you know, so it all goes back to ground, so don't worry, you know. But predominantly veg scraps, you know, kitchen waste, grass clippings, weeds, all that. Like, you might get some seeds, but don't worry about it unless you've got a real hot compost. You know, you need quite a big one for that. But you can compost in any, you just pick a corner anywhere that's not too flooded, and just build the pile and cover it up and just keep turning it and let the worms do it. So it all begins like this. Is cardboard, kitchen scraps, potato peelings. The cardboard is the brown, and obviously the kitchen scraps are the greens. If you get too many greens, it can smell a little bit and get a bit wet and sloppy. Just up the browns. Browns, you know, cardboard, wood chips. Wood chips are okay actually. You know, it's quite handy if you can get all some wood chips to add to your compost as a compost, and that'll probably help it. But for me, it's predominantly cardboard. Tea bags. Just double check that they are biodegradable. These are. Even though they do take a while, so when you're raking out in the ground you get little fluffy bits, but they do break down. You know, you can tear them. I don't always tear them. The worms get in there and deal with it. Because obviously when your compost heap's going, you turn the heap. So that's how it kind of begins. It takes time. How long it takes is how much you turn it, how well the ratio of the mix between the greens and browns, you know, how wet or how dry it is. Like I say, it needs air into it, and it doesn't look the best when you first tip it out, because I usually use this for just raking on the ground really. But it's compost, and beggars can't be choosers. There's all sorts of junk in there. You know, and probably whatever doesn't go through the sieve is what I'll throw on the ground. I could pick, this is a good time to pick all the plastic out and stuff. It's just when you know, throwing stuff in, stuff blows in it, and you end up with bits of plastic in there and whatnot. You can pick them out and discard them. There's twigs and all sorts in it. Something's a tea bag there. The guts have gone out of it, but it's just like a thin webbing. Same with dryer lint. You can put dryer lint in, but it tends to just hang around there for a long time. And just sieve it through. Ideally, if you've got some of this, you know, you can sort of do it and then leave it a few weeks, you know, on a tray to dry out a bit. But the Vermiculite will dry it out. But if you've got some other compost as well, you can mix the two if you want. There's no harm in that. You know, some of these lumps, some will break up, some will be just like real rock hard tea bags and stuff like that. But I'm not bothered about breaking it up too much. You know, because you can put the rest back on the compost if you want. You know, because worms will still work in it pretty much until the whole pile's gone into the ground, really. But just a case of sieving bits off, get rid of the clumpy bits, and the cable ties, of course. And then I'm going to probably put this tray in the kitchen for an hour or two, just to take the chill off it a bit. It's great if you've got like a bit of sunshine. Just that some seeds you might shock certain things if you put them like into, if your seeds have been indoors. You know, because it is cold. You know, there'll be a few bugs in there, little worms and whatnot, but you know, you can't pamper your plants too much, because it's like trying to rear something wild. It's going to go out in the wilds, so it needs to firm up and actually sort of weaned onto, well, harden off, what do you call it? You gradually acclimatise over time. So propagator lids are great for germinating, but once they're up, expose them to a bit of top draft or something like that. Not so much cold winds, but some people, you know, they have fans, and that just stops them getting leggy and signals them to get a thicker stem. You know, I just sometimes brush my hands over them. So that's it sieved. Vermiculite ratio, whatever you like, really, you know. Put quite a bit in. You can do 50-50 if you want, but anywhere between sort of 20, 40%, something like that. I get my vermiculite, but in a big sack. So I usually get a sack like every few years. I think it's a company called Sinclair or something I've used for that, I can't remember. You know, but if you haven't got perlite, don't worry about it. Doesn't matter if it's compost. It just helps drainage, that's all. It puts a bit of air in the mix and lightens it up. But if you haven't, just go steady on the watering, and it'll be fine with just the compost on its own. Obviously, if there's anything in your compost, you know, that's a problem, doesn't matter what you do to your compost, it's in there. So that's the basic mix, you know, and it's a big difference when you look at it going from kitchen scraps like that to that. It's kind of costs you nothing, because if you're growing your own stuff and you're recycling your cardboard still, you know, but fair enough, not back into cardboard, but or any sort of waste, just recycling it to that to put to use, feed your plants, feed the soil, which feeds you, and then the cycle keeps going like that. So it doesn't actually, it just keeps going in that circle, you know. So it's a win-win if you can get to this sort of stage. I mean, sometimes it's hard to produce enough, but for seedlings you don't need much, you know. Ideally, I'd say if you can compost for the year and then tip that compost bin into something else and let it sort of mature then for a few months. As long as it can't, you know, as long as it's not wet and sat in a soggy ground, it'll dry out, because as you turn it, it'll aerate it and the worms will go through it, and it just allows it to, you know, casually drain, and it just makes it a bit more workable. If it's a big solid compact pile, sometimes you can get hold of it. I mean, it clumps up like that, but it should crumble apart again, which is what you want. Now this is probably wet enough without even water in it, you know, so don't think you need to saturate things, as long as you make sure it's nestled down in any pots enough. Pots I'm going to be using, probably got some little like 7 or 8 centimetre pots, some of these. These are 7 centimetre I got from Wilco's years ago. They're a modiform, they're called. They're a 7 by 7 and they're 8 centimetres high, and I find these are a great size pot, so I need to get hold of some more at some point. Garlic wise, it's pretty straightforward garlic. You know, if you've not, you can use shop bought garlic if you want, but I'd probably get yourself a couple of good seed garlic, just a bulb, garlic bulb, and then just simply sort of crack it open. You know, these are mine from last year that I grew. It's Solent white, and obviously you get your cloves and everything. Just carefully pull the clove off. Try not to damage sort of the blunt end, that end. When you plant them, they're going to go into a pot with the little thin tip pointing upwards. That's all you have to do for garlic. It's pretty much keeps itself occupied. It just needs cold, otherwise it won't split. You'll end up with just one big lump of garlic. So it needs about 30 days of cold, so below 10 degrees. So don't think if you put it in your house, you know, to warm it up to get it fired, it won't help, because you don't really want the top to sprout. Yeah, you'll think it's doing nothing. You know, you could plant these in little pots and it does nothing for weeks, and you think it's not growing. Just lift the bottom of the pot up and look at the bottom, and you'll start seeing roots at the bottom, and that's what you want. You want the roots and no top yet. That gets it plenty of roots down, so when you plant it out, there might be just a tiny little green blip on the top, you know. Even if it's got a bit of a stem, it doesn't matter, as long as it's had a good cold snap and it's got plenty of roots. And as soon as that springtime comes, and it's rankered down, the roots will go straight up. There is a mist, you know, like obviously the size of clove impacts the size of the finished product. Is that true? Yeah, but I am going to test that this year, because I've sorted through some garlic, and I've got, you know, most of my cloves are about 3 grams each. This is a soft neck variety. To tell the difference, you get a hard neck variety, there'll be a stalk in the middle, and they'll all be gathered around. Hard necks taste probably stronger, but they don't store as well. So that's why I go for soft necks. I've grown hard necks, but it's all these now, and I've not bought any garlic for years. I just keep using my own. It gets used to your environment. So I've sorted out. I've got predominantly 3 gram cloves, but I've also got a few 4s and 5s. So I'm going to try and keep them organised. Try to, and see the difference, and see if there's any particular, you know, difference in finish weight. I'm not going to put them like down the edge of a row. They're going to get like in the middle, so they're not near the edge of a bed where it might be a bit drier and things like that. So just see, and if you end up with like a big clove that's not very big, you know, when it finishes, then you can kind of eliminate it. I know I tend to not use any of the smaller ones, because you get a few in there that are 2 gram. You just put them to one side and use them in your kitchen, or blitz them up and freeze them in ice cube trays. So you'll use quite a few bulbs. You know, if you're picking the better ones out, you know, because you might get, I don't know, 8 or 9 cloves off a single bulb of garlic, and then obviously you've got probably the other half of the garlic left over still. You can use for cooking. So I'm going to fill a lot of pots up, and I'll probably go and have a brew, and fill some pots up, and then give them a bit of time in the house to just warm up, take the chill off it a bit. Doesn't really need much. Take the chill off it a bit, and then we'll come back and we shall start sowing things. I'll just quickly show you how I do these onions. I'm just using these like little, there's 48 cells, quite tiny. They will get obviously put into bigger ones at some point, but this will tide them over for probably 5-6 weeks. And obviously you've got to watch it, because obviously once you put them in something bigger, it can further expand in space. So if you haven't got lots of space, just hold fire for now, and or do them successfully. Sow some, you know, every couple of weeks. But, you know, they're not too. Once you get to sort of end of March, they kind of start hardening them off under a cold frame type thing. So varieties are the Santero and Red Spark. So it's from DT Browns. I'm not saying, you know, no affiliation with DT Browns. Use seeds off whoever you want to get some off. Sometimes it's good to try, a couple of seed suppliers for the same type of thing and just put them to test, because it has happened to me where I've had, seeds from many companies and they've just not fired, and you think, oh, it's me, and it's not. It's been bad seed, so it does happen out there, and it can be a bit more often than needs be, but just depends. Certain things you can only get from certain suppliers, so you have to. But use seed whoever you're confident with, or wherever's cheapest, what you can afford, or save your own seed, which I have saved quite a bit of my own seed actually. Like a lot of my peppers are my own seed. I've sold some the giant bell peppers from my own seed. Way too many there, but pretty much all of them germinated. So it's a bit time consuming doing this bit. I've used my little dibber, which I haven't got with me now, but you can use like a little stick or anything. I've just pre-dibbed holes about 1 centimetre deep, so anywhere from sort of ½ centimetre to 1 centimetre. I'll just show you that close. You see all that little tiny holes all dibbed. It's just a case of trying to drop one seed, 2 straight away there, in each of the 2, in each little module, and they probably won't all germinate, because it is disappointing, when you think, well, there's nothing coming up, which I have had one year, where it was really poor germination. When you've got a few trays of like onions and they're from different suppliers, that kind of shows you then whether it's bad seed or not, and it does happen. I know a lot had problems with like shallots, especially the Zebrun. A few years ago there were loads of germination problems, and it's also a good way, if you start things early like this, it's a bit of a test, that the compost is okay, because if there's anything wrong with it, you've not wasted a load of the season. There's still time. So usually I tend to sow anywhere between 150 to 200 onions. It sounds like a lot, but I kind of use onion every day in cooking. It's tricky to work out. You think what do you need? Well, garlic. Last year I did 60. Is it going to be enough? Probably not, because it only allocates like just over 1 full bulb per week. But then you've got to take your own seed from that as well. So it's always a good idea to add more. That's the first one done. Try and get these. These are an F1, so I couldn't save my own seed from these. So is the red spark. Otherwise, you can save your own seed if you want. So I found a little sieve wherever I've put it. It's around somewhere. But it doesn't matter. It's all pre-sieve, this compost anyway. So I'll just do it the old-fashioned way. Just cover it with my hand like that. Sprinkle it on. People used to use put it in a plant pot and hold the top of the pot and shake it over, which is fine, it all works. Just to fill all them little holes up. A bit of a tamper down. And I'll probably, I'll give these a bit of a water, but I'll probably soak them actually for about, 5 minutes from the bottom. Because onion seeds do like a good water to start off with. And then I'll probably not even water them again, until it feels light. You just got to be careful you don't rot things off. You're better off underwatering than overwatering, really. Because you can always keep adding. But it's to take, if you do overwater, just put it on some kitchen roll or cardboard to try and drag some moisture out of it. So that's all I do for the onions. It's pretty straightforward, really. Got some right this here, Santero. Like I say, they're a cracking onion to grow. Grown them for the last good few years now. Since I came across them, I thought, right, well, I've no qualms with them at all. They're a little bit mildew resistant. The red spark aren't. You know, usually mildew gets them, but storage-wise, if you can escape the mildew and they don't damage them too much, you can dry them properly. It's all about you drying. You've got to dry the onions properly before you try and store them. You know, which I'll do again later this year, but it's been in previous years as well that I've done. Right, so I'm going to sow some peppers. So I've got, I think these are some jalapenos that I saved from my own seed last year. I think they are. I'm pretty certain they are. I should have some Apaches somewhere. If I haven't, I'll have to search for them. Do them. Yeah, I'll do the Apaches later. So it's pretty much just the same compost. You can pre-soak that if you want. You know, I would water these from the bottom until you see it going dark, and then that's good enough. Like, pull my little label out. You know, you can do these in like a little pot if you want. So I'm just gonna scatter some seeds. You know, if you've got loads of seeds, just do a bit more than what you need. It's okay, because friends, family, you know, other people on down the allotment and things like that. You know, everyone has mishaps, so it's good to share your seeds and stuff. All I did with these, I let the jalapenos go like really overripe till they were pretty much red, and then took them off and just dried them out. I'm not going to need that many. If any, I'll probably only 3 or 4, if that. But at least it gives me a good head start. And then it's just a case of, you know, covering them. You don't have to put much on them, so it's as long as you can't see the seed, and that's enough. For seeds like this, they don't like being buried too deep. You know, probably like 3 or 4 mil and 5 mil of compost on top is ample enough. Don't pack it down too tight. They say water from the bottom, you know, and then don't you know, if you've inside, don't cover it for a day or two. Let some excess water drain off. You know, if you don't want it feeling heavy. This compost is fairly damp anyway, so what I'll probably do with this, I'll just put it inside a big zip seal bag, and then just put it on windowsill or nearest to a radiator. It doesn't really need loads of light to get them to fire, and then get them on a really bright windowsill. The windowsills can be a bit cold, so if you put them straight on a windowsill, it might be a bit chilly, because stuff like that, you know, it kind of wants to get about 15 to 20 degrees to germinate, and when they come up, they'll look like them. I say they're leaning a bit, these, because they lean towards the light. So prick these out. I'll probably use I've got these pots, but they might be a bit big, because I've got a load of these, but I tend to keep these for me brassicas, so they look a bit lost. Peppers do nothing for a long time; they're just growing roots, really. I'll put it in one of these small pots so you can see. I'll just use a plant label for now for getting one out so you can see, and just make sure it's not too packed down. Just make sure it's all down, because that way it'll wick some water up. You know, because same again, you can give this a little water from the top if you want, but predominantly you want to be wetting it from below. Basically, pick a pepper like so, tiny little bit of root on it. You can use a pencil. I've got a Sharpie here, so I'll use that. Make all. You can go a little bit deeper with peppers. Drop it in. Just firm it down with a little tap. It'll probably sit like that for weeks. But it'll open out and you'll see the next set of leaves will start, and that's its first sort of set of true leaves. These are just seed leaves. They'll become redundant sooner or later. The trick is with things like peppers and chilies is don't pot them on something like, you know, from that size to a great big pot. They need to go up in pot sizes, because it's as soon as they hit the side of the pot, they'll start to think, well, is it time to start putting fruit? That's as much room as I've got. So, or they can get a bit lost and lonely in a big pot. So just pot them on gradually, and until they get into something like, you know, anywhere between sort of 7 and 12 litre pots, depends on the size of plant you want. That's how I'd eat peppers. What I have got here, put them on top of there for now, is these are Kelsey onions, the giant onions. I did exhibition last year. They're alright, still got a couple left, to be honest. I think got caught by some frost, so. But I could do with my little dibber for this, really, but I'll try and do it with this. Actually, I'll go and get my dibber. Right, I've got my little dibber. You can, you know, see, use pencil or anything like that if you want. So just a case of, you can get these little tiny sort of scoops. You can use a teaspoon if you want, but be careful. You can do it all with a dibber. And the idea is sort of carefully uproot one. You know, and this is what onions look like. The ideal time to prick them out is, because as they grow, they tend to grow in like, and then in a hook shape. And as soon as it starts to lift, it's a good time then. You know, so it's got one big long root on it. I don't know where you'll see this, but it's just a case of like dib a hole a good way down, lay it on the side, and then just use your dibber and just coax that root down in the hole. Don't bury it too deep. You know, so it's just because it'll right itself. That's the great thing with onions. It's sort of like when they put some roots out, they kind of work out which way's up, and they sort themselves out. You know, and these will probably stay indoors for a little while and bring them out about March, and they'll probably get potted on into bigger pots as well, because they'll end up, you know, pretty high if everything goes well. I don't know how many I'm going to need, but it's always good at the allotment. You see, you get some people that have just started and they get a little bit of space, and if you've got a few left over, you know, if their onions don't do too well, they get a couple of these grow, and it's, you know, you can end up like, you know, anywhere between sort of £10-15 of onion just off 2 or 3 of them. So it's sort of great for chopping and freezing. So I'll get on do the rest of these, but that's about it for all you can do at the moment. You can start some leeks if you want. You know, for an early batch of leeks, sort of to harvest sort of June, July, but I tend to use my leeks for the later season. All I do with that is I just get like a 6-inch pot, fill it with compost, scatter the seeds on the top. Also, a pot the size of a bucket will do. Scatter seeds on the top, cover them over, put them indoors till they germinate, bring them out and let them grow. And once they get about sort of pencil thickness, you're probably looking about like May time, something like that, end of May. You'll go out, you'll dib your holes. So use a big dibber. I use so yeah, like a broken spade handle. I've got a cable tie here. So you dib a hole that size, drop your leek in. Don't fill it in, you just fill the hole up with water. You know, take the rolls off the watering can, fill it up, and that'll wash any excess soil into the leek roots, and then that's all you have to do for leeks. Rust can be an issue, but you might get lucky. But that's it. I mean, you know, next month is where it really begins. I always sort of like to say about Valentine's Day is when it, you know, you begin with the brassicas and stuff like that, because they go out. I always put my stuff out in April. It's just too wet in my plot otherwise, because it's really, really soaking wet. So I went down the other day and pruned my blueberry bushes, and I was just wading in water. So it's a no-go for the moment anyway. So that's it for this video. So I will be doing another sweet pea giveaway, which I've got loads left now. So I'll probably do about 15 packs. So I'll put my email address in the link, you know, in the description below, and you can contact me and just say UK only, I'm afraid. And I've got some little bags with probably, I don't know, probably about 40-50 seeds in, and I'll be giving them away. And it's probably going to be the last year I'm going to be doing a giveaway, because it's coming up 5 years since my mum passed away, and it's been nice. I mean, the amount of people that have grown them, it's quite amazing, really. It's nice. It's just obviously the cost issues have posted, but I have got some envelopes and stamps left over, so I thought I'll use them up, because I've got to really think about budget this year. and try and do things as cheap as possible. So thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you next time. See you now, bye bye.